The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. Now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Welcome, everyone, to Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA in Toronto, Ontario. With me is my co-host who's back from vacation, Matthew Dressing. Welcome back, Matthew.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. And as always, we welcome your questions via social media or emails.
That's right. And we want to thank you once again for joining us down the garden path. And to remember that in addition to the live show that you get to tune into right now, it is available and will be available as a podcast. So you can check it out on your favorite podcast app and please subscribe. And then that way you will be notified every time a new show loads. So we want to thank everybody for once again joining us down the garden path. So, welcome back from vacation.
Thank you very much. Yes, Chicago was lovely.
Yes.
Beautifully landscaped.
Yes.
And you didn't get shot.
And he didn't get shot.
No, I stayed away from certain areas.
Yes, but Chicago's lovely.
But
and you had good weather, too.
It was perfect. There was no humidity. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Excellent. Yeah. And it's been pretty good here. I mean, it's been, I guess it's pretty good here.
Yeah.
Weather-wise.
Stormy days.
Plants are catching up. I know we've been all talking about how things are a little behind.
Yeah.
And that goes in part with our show today. Right. We are going to be talking daylilies. So I know I've often talked about encouraging people to go on garden tours and join horticultural societies and things like that. So I was on my Hort Society garden tour a couple weeks ago. And, several different stops. And one of them was to TrueNorth Daylilies. And unfortunately, the daylilies were not blooming because everything is a couple weeks behind. But now it officially is starting to be daylily season, as delayed as that is. So we are really excited that Tim Hobbs from TrueNorth Daylilies has agreed to come on the show to talk all about daylilies and learn all about daylily hybridizing. So a little bit about Tim. Tim has gardened for about 25 years on a 2-acre property just south of Warkworth, Ontario, creating shade gardens, sun gardens, and pretty much covering most of the property. Around 2007, Tim bought some daylilies from a daylily hybridizer and was fascinated with the idea of trying to make new, never-seen-before daylilies. It wasn't too long afterwards that he tried some hybridizing. Slowly but surely, the daylilies expanded beyond the 2 acres, jumping the fence onto an additional 2 acres, which now houses a greenhouse and approximately, get this, 50,000 daylilies. About 5 years ago, TrueNorth Daylilies was born, offering daylilies for $15 each or 3 for $40. The response was so positive, 2 years ago they decided to offer some additional perennials along with the daylilies for sale. But tonight we're going to just focus on daylilies. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you.
So daylilies. So you had just said before we went live that the daylilies have finally started to open up thanks to the weather.
Yeah, pretty much this week they just started to kind of show themselves. They've been a little shy, and but every day there's more. So the colors are starting to happen.
Excellent. Now, are you potting them up from the field? Because I know when I was there, they were mostly in the field.
So basically, what we do with the field-grown daylilies is when people visit, they just kind of walk up and down the rows. They pick the daylily they want. We dig it, bag it, and they take it home right there and then.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
That is very cool.
And it works very well.
Yes?
Yes.
Wow.
Very neat.
It's kind of like not quite pick your own, right? But
Well, basically, I like to tell the people, they'll know when it'll talk to them, and then basically tell them to take me home with you, and they'll stop right there. We have a flag system, so basically they'll pick 3 flags. Typically, people will buy 3 for $40, and they'll pick 3 white flags, because when you're walking around the field and you see the daylily you want that actually speaks to you, you're going to flag it and carry on and keep looking for the next 2, because if you don't flag it, you'll never find that daylily again.
yeah.
We'll spend more time looking for that one daylily than we can spend an hour looking for that daylily. It disappears. So they'll grab their flags and they'll walk around the field and they'll look for the one that they like, and we'll dig it for them.
Are the white flags marked? I can just imagine a sea of white flags with everyone
there's
enjoying
all different
themselves.
colors. We have whites and there's greens and blues
okay.
and purples. There's all, and when the people show up, it's usually not too bad. It can get a little chaotic when sometimes you have a bus. 50 people all show up at once and they're here for an hour and a half.
Yes.
It can get a little chaotic, but so far it works out pretty good. We have some other little methods we do just to keep everything straight.
Yes.
Keep everybody happy.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yes, you did a great hosta day for you that day that my tour was there.
Yes, it was. And again, thank you guys for showing up. It
Oh.
was a great day. I love having buses or garden tours because, as I mentioned to somebody, I think on that tour, that it actually stops me from working and actually appreciate everything we've done.
Oh,
and,
good.
I think as a gardener, we sometimes, I know I do, I look for what needs to be done next,
Right.
the next weed that needs to be picked. And when you have a tour or people show up, I can see the garden through your eyes. And to me, I really appreciate that. That's pretty neat when people show up and walk the gardens.
Yeah, no, that was great. And you were prepared and you guys handled, because it was a full bus. There was 56 of us.
Yeah, it was good. It would have been so much better and so much more fun if the daylilies were flowering. You guys would have been, I think, pretty happy when you see 50, 60,000 daylilies kind of in bloom.
Yes.
It's pretty neat to see.
Yeah, that would have been made for a lot of great photos for sure,
Absolutely.
too. But I'm so glad we get to do the show and kind of promote and educate the public about your nursery.
Okay,
So tell everybody where you are.
So we're south of a small town called Warkworth, Ontario.
Okay.
And it's fairly easy to get to. If you're coming down the 401, basically in either direction, out of Toronto or out of the Kingston area, and you're going to see a sign for Brighton. And if you get off at that turn off the 401 onto Brighton, you're going to get onto Highway 30, and we're about 15 minutes straight north on Highway 30. So it's very, very easy to get to.
Okay.
And once you get into that area, because we're kind of out in the country, then you can kind of have to start, get out your GPS and start kind of, following some roads that kind of turn and twist.
Right.
Typically, we have our own signs made up that we have posted all over kind of the main intersections, kind of helping to guide people into our nursery. And they'll just say hostas, or they'll say daylilies, something of that nature. And
Right.
it just kind of helps guide people into here.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, so you had a great setup there. So that's good. So it definitely is, the next couple weeks will definitely, or even longer, right? The daylilies, some have longer blooms.
That's right. Typically, a daylily, you can get early bloom and mid bloom and late bloom in daylilies.
Okay.
And in a normal year, not like this year, you'll actually start seeing them bloom about the last week of June.
Yes.
And then they'll slowly, every day you'll see a little bit more and a little bit more. And time you hit around the middle of July would typically be full bloom.
Right.
And that's when you're going to see all the color and the most that's happening. And then from that point on, it's going to slowly get less and less, and pretty much take you right into the end of August.
Wonderful.
But this year, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
We're just starting to see daylilies now. Easily 2 weeks later than normal.
Right.
Going to be lots of color though. There's lots of scape showing, which means there's lots of buds. So there's going to be lots of flowers this year.
Now, do you think it was compressed, or like are the early ones, let's say the early ones and the mid ones, or are they now just kind of blooming at the same time?
Well, that's kind of my feeling from what I'm seeing. When you look out across the field and you kind of see all these little, or the buds ready to open, they're all relatively the same size.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of think you're right. I think it's been kind of compressed, and we're just going to see a massive bloom for several weeks. So the slow coming on and the slow leaving is probably going to be compressed more, and we're just going to see a lot more color in that 3-week period.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So why do you feel like daylilies are so special? Like what draws them to you?
Well,
or what drew them to you at the beginning of all
they're
this?
extremely hardy plant.
Okay.
I mean, they just look after themselves, and you've been here, you kind of know what goes on in our gardens.
Right.
And if a plant can't survive on its own, it's probably not going to survive here because we don't give it any TLC. And that's where the daylilies really fit in nice. They're just extremely, extremely hardy. They can take flooding, they can take drought. And once they're established, they just look after themselves. And I mean, that to me is everything, because, once you get that plant that you love and you have to have, and you can plant it in your garden, you can kind of forget about it, and it's going to be there the next year.
Excellent. That actually ties.
From the hybridizing side, it's just, that wasn't something I planned. It just kind of happened, and, you get fooling around with it, and all of a sudden, it's like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, you're making something that nobody else out there is making. And when you see the seedlings bloom for the first time, like for me, and I think for a lot of hybridizers, that's kind of the special time, because no one's ever seen that flower before, and you really truly don't know what you're going to get until that flowers.
Very cool.
And it's kind of like Christmas.
Yes, yeah.
And that's pretty cool. And I go out and hybridize in the morning, and then usually I'm out there by about 6 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing you want to do is run over to the seedling bed and look at everything, but you got to kind of hold yourself back and kind of do your hybridizing first, and then get over to the seedlings.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to go back to the hardiness of the daylilies, because we have a guest has written in an email. Gail is asking a question for your guest. Are daylilies susceptible to frost, and do they need frost protection?
Not really, no. Again, I guess it depends where you live. I mean, we do live in a very, large country.
Right.
And, but, my experience with plants, I'm in Zone 5. I know plants have been in Zone 4. I even have some plants in Cappus casing, which I don't even know what their zone would be, other than,
it's low. It's
a
cold.
12-hour drive north of here.
Yeah.
So it's cold.
Yeah.
They get a lot of snow. So to answer that question, in a Zone 5 or a Zone 4, if you're dealing with a hardy perennial, like a hardy daylily, you don't need any protection.
Excellent. And if Gail wants to tell us where she is, and we can follow that up for sure.
Okay.
And then Erica's writing in saying hi. She's a new listener to our show. Welcome, Erica. Thank you for tuning in. Regarding daylilies, do you recommend any fertilizer for them? If so, what kind and the numbers? Thank you.
Normally, no. You don't really have to fertilize daylilies. What they do like is water. They do really like to have water. Now, if you can't water them or it's just a drought season, they're going to still survive. But they're like a lot of perennials. If you give them really good, enriched soil to start with, and you can give them water as needed throughout the week, a real good deep soaking of water, you'll find that your daylilies just perform so much better. But as far as a real fertilizer goes, you really don't have to do that.
Okay.
Again, a good cow manure, rotted cow manure as you plant it, mixed in with your soil, is really all you need.
Excellent.
But if you do have to fertilize, anything with a good nitrogen, say a high nitrogen, and you want to do it early in the season, is pretty much all you really need to do.
And when you say water, I mean, Matt and I always talk about encouraging people to water deeper, less often.
Correct.
Right? And like any garden, regardless of where you are, to water a little bit every day is not good for your plants because you're keeping the roots kind of stay at the surface. So would you agree, Dayla? So when you say good water, but you mean like a good watering roughly once a week?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a good watering once a week, and make sure it gets like real deep into the soil, so your roots are getting deep where they need to be. You'll find with daylilies, the roots they're probably referred to by many names, but they swell up and they get like toes, and that helps store the energy to keep that daylily going through tough times.
Okay.
And that's why they can be so hardy.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Yep.
Kyle's writing in, what is the best time to plant daylilies? He's heard several different times of year and was hoping you might clarify. And thanks for your answer.
So I guess being up here in the north, obviously, the best time would be spring. Mm-hmm. But with that said, that gives them a longer growing period to get the roots established. But with that said, kind of the rule of thumb, or by what I go by here, is we can usually safely plant pretty much any time throughout the year up till Thanksgiving. Okay. And if we think we're going to have a really warm fall, I even know people that have even planted later than Thanksgiving.
Yeah, for sure.
And the plants have done, they made it through the winter.
Yeah.
But use Thanksgiving as a rule of thumb. And we dig right in the heat of July. Like I say, people show up and we dig and they take the plants home. And they'll survive. Yeah.
I would say they they'll be fine. I mean, yes, it's not in the middle of a heat wave or something, it might not be ideal, but don't go on a 2-week vacation after you plant it, right? If you're going to be home and you can make sure it gets watered, right?
Yeah,
then it's
water would be the most important thing. And what I tell people too, if you are going to go away and you can't plant it right away, just put it in a bucket of water. Just leave it right in a bucket of water, and typically it'll do fine for a little while in a bucket of water.
Okay, there you go. So they're pretty hardy.
They are.
Excellent. There we go. And we had lots of questions, so that's great. Early in the show, we're like, wow, there's another one Gary is posting up there.
Well, daylilies are fairly, they're quite a popular plant, and I think it's because, they are tough, they're hardy, and they're so pretty. When they bloom, they have such a pretty face to them.
Yes. And I think the foliage, the fact that even before they bloom and after they bloom, there still is some presence in the garden, like the green, foliage, the leaves really still are a dominant factor, right?
Well, that's right.
Design-wise and things like that,
Yeah, and being the shape that the leaves are does add that contrast in your garden as well.
Right.
Can break up other, things you have going on around, and it just adds interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. We like to add the design twist to the show as much as we can. So that's great. That's so great. So regarding going back to the hybridizing, so how many cultivars, varieties, like of the 50,000 that you grow, how many different varieties?
Well, the thing with the daylilies, when you produce or when you hybridize, each one is different. So even though you might produce, let's say you have a mature clump of daylilies, so when you hybridize that clump, say you use the same pollen from the same plant, you might make 100, 200, 300 seed, and each one of those seeds is going to be different from the next one. So even though when they grow and they eventually flower, they might look similar, there's always going to be something about them that's different. And I kind of refer to, like, kids in a family. You can tell they're brothers. The one's 6'5", the other one's only 5'10".
Right.
But yet you can tell they're brothers or related.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of thing. And daylilies will do that too. You'll have short ones, tall ones, just different colorations within the exact same cross. And as a hybridizer, what you look for is those special traits or those quality traits or something very unusual.
Okay.
That separates it from the rest of the pack. And that's what we would select out for further hybridizing down the road.
Okay. And there's so many of them. So that must be, so you really must have, I guess, like your children, right? Like get to really know them well in order to know how to make a new one.
Well, yeah. See, you really don't know what you're going to get.
Okay.
Like, again, if you have an eye and an edge and you breed it to another eye and an edge, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get an eye and an edge.
Okay.
There's no guarantee, but it's pretty high likelihood you're going to get a eye and an edge. But you just really don't know what color you're going to get.
Oh, okay.
So you could, the one parent might have a dark eye and the other parent might have a slightly, more reddish eye or something. So when you breed the two, you're going to get all these different colors and different. It's just you can't guess. You don't know until that flower it flowers what you're truly going to get, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
I've seen two purple parents give you yellow, and it's like so somewhere in its genetics in the background in its grandparents or wherever there must have been a yellow flower at one time, and I've seen yellows give you purple. And it's like, how's that possible? But it's in the genetics somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would never guess that until that flower, until it actually flowered.
Okay.
Like parents having all brown eyes and then suddenly one of them's got bright hazel eyes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Cool.
you're going to, like, again, you're pretty sure that when you kind of do an eye to an eye or an edge to an edge, there's a good likelihood that you're going to capture that genetics. You just don't actually know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've kind of tried to do over the years is, when you're talking daylilies, there's different types of daylilies. There's dormants, there's semi-evergreens, and there's evergreens. And if people buy typically, say, an evergreen, which will do quite well in the southern states where it's warm because they want to grow all year round,
Okay.
and you buy those plants and you bring them up here, there's some will survive. Some maybe will survive but not do well, and others will just die. And what happens is because they want to keep growing all winter long, and they can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have dormants, which do very well in our climate. They go to sleep in the winter, the foliage disappears, the plant goes underground, and it lies dormant. Or they kind of change the name and call it deciduous. But I'm an old timer, so I still call it dormant.
Yeah.
And then in the spring, all that new foliage comes up. It's a nice, clean-looking daylily, and that's how it goes. With evergreens, you'll kind of have a messy, ratty-looking mess of leaves because those leaves have been there all winter.
Right. Okay.
So you got to be a little bit careful on what you buy, from who, and you got to kind of understand what climate that daylily is actually suited for.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the ones that you're growing, are they all deciduous or?
Primarily, yes. See, when my seedlings are, I start the seeds outside, and they just stay there. So Mother Nature will actually weed out the ones that's not going to do well in our climate.
Right. It's kind of survival of the fittest.
That's right.
Yeah.
But my program is basically, I do buy a lot of southern plants, so I do buy a lot of evergreens, because normally evergreens, the Florida stuff, was always fancier. They always had prettier faces.
Mm-hmm.
They always had, bigger scapes and more buds, and they just had a lot more going on. And the northern stuff, typically super hardy, very nice plants, but they just didn't seem to have the ruffles and the curls and and that look.
Yeah.
So the idea is to bring that Florida stuff in and keep crossing it with dormants.
Oh, okay.
With the idea of creating dormant plants that look like southern plants.
Right.
Mm.
And that's kind of, I guess, been my goal for, the last 10 or 12 years. And we kind of coined a phrase that we use on some of our literature, and it's just putting southern faces in northern places.
Oh, that's cute.
That is cute.
And,
Yeah.
I think we're succeeding. I mean, we're starting to see plants and flowers that look very similar to some of the southern stuff,
Uh-huh.
some of the well-known hybridizers out of Florida and that. So, yeah, I think it's working. And, it's pretty nice when you can take that beautiful southern plant and you can grow it now in your own gardens here in our climate, and you don't have to worry about it.
So maybe just quickly for some of our more northern listeners like Joanne and I, what does a northern face typically look like in comparison to a southern face?
Well, typically in the past, and we're going to go back, say 10 years, a typical, it could be a big flower, but very plain. Okay, it'd be like one color, not a lot of ruffled on the edges, but still very pretty. So what we've done to advance that is we've just taken, maybe the color is more rich, more saturated, more deeper in color. But now the edges are getting ruffled, and you're not only getting, say, a single color along that outside edge if you're doing an eye and an edge, but maybe now you're getting double colors on the edge or triple colors on the edge.
Okay.
And these are things you wouldn't have noticed, 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
Right.
in northern stuff.
Okay.
So you've taken that kind of look, and you've just advanced it to now where you are getting those big eyes and the big edges and double and triple edges and lots of ruffles and curls.
Okay.
Very cool.
Something you typically would have noticed more down in the southern states.
Right, right. Now, when it comes to when you're successful, like, how do you know you're successful?
You mean with a plant?
Yeah, like doing that, like when you've taken when you've officially proven that you can put a southern face on in the northern place. Like is there when you've been able to reproduce it a few times or successfully the same? Is that?
Well, no, I think what it is, because each plant's kind of an individual.
Oh, okay.
And you judge each plant on its own merit. So you can register a daylily, or that's our goal, is to register a daylily with the American Hemerocallis Society.
Okay.
So they'll take all the information from that plant, the parents, if you know it, the height, how many buds are on escape, a number of things. And once it's registered, then typically those plants should be the best of your best.
Oh, okay.
And kind of unique in the world of daylilies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to sell that plant for more money.
Oh, okay.
And that's typically how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of done on a one-on-one basis. And you look for different things in a daylily to make sure you have the right quality to be able to register it or to meet that level. It's the quality of the scape or the stalk, depending what you want to call it. How many buds are on escape? How many branches are on escape? Because the more buds means more flowers.
Mm-hmm.
The more branching, the typically and better space branching, then your flowers, when they open, they don't impede each other.
Mm.
You want a flower that opens nice and flat early in the morning. You don't want one that hangs up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want one that doesn't open very well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these different things you kind of look for as a breeder.
Yeah.
And you want to keep breeding those good traits back into your program. And that's the stuff that takes that's what elevates it to that next level.
Right. Now, like, I would want one that blooms like, June 1st to September 1st.
Yeah.
So, because I don't have room in my garden for like lots of different varieties, right? So I want one variety that's going to bloom all summer. So is that another factor, length of bloom, or is that one harder?
Well, see, a daylily really only blooms for one day.
Correct.
And that's where the name hemerocallis comes from, beauty for a day. And but what you got to look at is the quality of plant. If you have lots of scapes, and you got lots of buds on those scapes, then therefore you're going to flower over a lot longer period of time.
Okay. That makes sense.
But are you going to stretch it over many, many, many weeks? Probably not. But can you stretch it over a couple of weeks? Absolutely.
Okay.
I almost kind of think of it like the way peonies are blooming.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It almost reminds me of how peonies bloom.
Yeah, they are kind of similar to peonies in that respect, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Just in the way they show.
Yeah, I guess that there's a time frame, and they're within that time frame they
Right.
could adjust slightly, but
And that's what I encourage people to do. If you always show up here or any daylily place, always in the middle of June, in July, then you're always going to get those mid-season blooming daylilies.
Mm-hmm.
So what I explain to people is, come at the end of June or first part of July,
Okay.
and come at the end of July or the first part of August, because then you're going to get those daylilies that are flowering at those times, and when you plant them, then that's going to spread your daylily color over your summer.
Right.
Excellent. Okay, and as far as people buying daylilies, they need to come to you, right? You're not doing mail order. They're not mailing them out.
Well, I do a couple ways. Anything that's registered.
Okay.
And I've been registering some since 2015.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many I do have registered, but if you go on my website, TrueNorth Daylilies, you will see the registered daylilies. Those I can ship through the mail.
Oh, okay.
And I have customers, all over Canada and the United States. Or people will come to the gardens, and they will walk the field and pick the field-grown seedlings.
So just for people who are interested in maybe going to your website, correct me if I'm wrong, it's TrueNorthDaylilies.com?
Correct.
And I believe, because I was poking around and there's some gorgeous things. If you haven't gone, go to this now, TrueNorthDaylilies.com. But you do have like a tab for each of your years registered.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can see all the daylilies.
There should be a page there for seedlings as well.
Oh, okay.
Just
See,
to
we're
give
so
people
thorough.
Kind of the idea of what you could see if you come here.
Right. Oh, that's
There's
exciting.
a very beautiful one, Tim, you've got on, I think, your 2019 introductions ? Page in the first row. It's nice and burgundy, and the edges are all ruffled in yellow. It's really exciting.
Oh,
So
good.
there's some really great stuff there, everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, we have another question. Larry has written in, and he's saying, can Tim tell us more about the Blossom Contest that he is sponsoring at the up-and-coming ODS picnic? He says he cannot find anything about it online.
Oh, so on July 27th,
Okay.
I'm hosting the Ontario Daylily Society picnic.
Ooh, that's what ODS stands for. There you go.
And I'm a member of the Ontario Daylily Society, and anybody who's, I encourage them to check out the Ontario Daylily Society or the American Hemerocallis Society if they're, truly, really like daylilies.
Right.
There's tons of information and stuff, associated with that. But we're hosting the picnic this year, and I think we hosted it a few years ago as well. And to be quite honest about the bloom, I'm kind of that's kind of new to me. That's something they started last year.
Oh, okay. The Blossom Contest?
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about it, to be quite honest
Okay.
with you. But if you reached out to the president of the Ontario Daylily Society, he's the fellow that started it last year. He could tell you in great detail exactly how that works. All I know is if you bring a bloom, there's categories and they get judged.
Oh, okay. Okay. Kind of like
And
a little
that's about
flower
all I can
show
tell you
at
this
yeah.
point, because
Okay.
again, I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay. All right. There you go, Larry. So maybe reach out to the ODS president for some more information. And I bet that there'll be probably more information online soon.
Yeah. And I'll reach out to John as well. And,
Okay.
and I can ask him, maybe he can put something on the Ontario Daylily Society website.
Okay.
Just to, make it available for people.
Perfect. So why don't we, since this is going to then be a podcast and maybe listeners between now and the 27th are going to hear about it. So why don't you tell us a bit about, so the Daylily, Ontario Daylily Society picnic is taking place at your property
Yes.
on July 27th,
Yes. And I believe it starts at 10 a.m. to 3.
3 p.m. Okay. And does
Yeah.
everybody bring their own goodies and munchies and blankets and that kind of thing?
Yep. So if everybody brings chairs, and it's kind of potluck, we supply the barbecue, of course. We do the hamburgers and
Oh,
sausages
okay,
and
okay.
that. And I think if other people, they bring salads or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is, then and typically you'll see about 30 or 40 people will typically show up.
Okay. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And your daylilies will still be blooming.
Yes, it's actually a good. In a normal year, that would be again getting near the end. But I
Right.
think this year it's going to be right in the middle of the season.
Excellent. Well, there's lots more to talk about as far as daylilies go. So send us in your questions at instudio101@gmail.com. We are going to pause for a commercial break, and we'll be right back. You've been listening to Down the Garden Path on Reality Radio 101.
Bay B&B offers the perfect holiday for the adventurous traveler or those who just want to escape from their busy lifestyle and rest. Book your comfortable stay in historic Margarettsville, Nova Scotia by calling 902-982-2302 and find panoramic views of the Bay of Fundy while enjoying the warm hospitality of Heber's Baked Goods and April's breathtaking watercolor paintings. Stay for a week or a weekend in your own suite, complete with private bath. Call 902-982-2302 to book your stay now. RelaxByTheBayBnB.com. Arrive as guests and leave as friends. The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Welcome back to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right back to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us here this evening on Down the Garden Path. We're here talking with Tim Hobbs of TrueNorth Daylilies. If you want to join the conversation, as Gary was just saying, perhaps you have a question for Tim or you'd like to share an experience, we'd always love to hear from you. You can write us here at the studio at instudio101@gmail.com, and you can always reach Joanne and I at any time. Joanne at down2earth.ca and Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. And I would just like to throw back to Ron. Ron wrote us in earlier in the evening. He said, "Hello, folks. Welcome back, Matt. Just wanted to say hello." So, hey, Ron, thanks for tuning in. We hope you're enjoying our show this evening and our guest, Tim.
That's right. That's right.
So, Tim, you kind of talked about hybridizing and things that you wanted to create. I just wanted to ask you, with all your hybridizing and all your daylilies, is there a daylily, this kind of image or idea you have in your head that one day you're hoping to create? Or have,
or you're working on,
or you're working on exactly.
Well, there's a hybridizer in Florida who had a tendency to produce more in the bluish colors because there's no true blue daylily, and his colors kind of went that way. And in the daylily world, we call them blue, but they're really not blue. But
right.
And I kind of really gravitated towards his stuff. And I'm starting to see some of my own seedlings are starting to look like that.
Oh.
So one flowered last year, and it actually was one of the winners. It was actually a three-way tie this past year at the Ontario Daylily Society Convention for what they call the Lisette Award. And that particular seedling was one of the winners for the Lisette Award. So that was pretty cool. And but that's probably maybe one of my best daylilies I've produced to date. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be pretty special. So I'm really keeping an eye on that one.
Okay. And by blue, do you mean purple, or do you think
more
like a powder blue periwinkle
yeah,
kind of thing?
Maybe more in the periwinkles.
Oh.
It gets kind of, there's like the lilac colors,
Okay.
They kind of get in that blue range.
Yeah.
Or, we're stretching it a bit, but but that's kind of the color. That's as far as the blues have kind of gotten.
Okay, like the cat. Are we close to like Nepeta, like the cat mint color?
I don't know. Not yet, maybe.
Okay. Sorry, and I'm pushing you even further, Tim. I'm sorry. Now I'm getting like really picky. But that's wonderful. I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
I mean, there's all different forms of daylilies. There's like the full form, which is kind of what I started with 12 years ago, the big round forms. But now there's spiders, the long spindly. There's actually a ratio. I think it's 4-to-1.
Okay.
And then there's kind of something in between that's just of unusual form. It doesn't go either way.
Right.
There's doubles.
Okay.
And there's many other forms as well. So there's lots of different looks in daylilies. So there should be something that please just about everybody.
Yes.
Now, I don't breed for all that kind of stuff. I do some unusual forms. I'm getting a little bit more into the spiders. I'm starting to appreciate them more now, even a few doubles. But I still primarily stick more to the larger, roundish, full form type of a daylily.
Okay.
I was just going to ask, do you do any spiders or star varieties?
Not really. I mean, I've been dabbling in it the last few years, and I think just now I'll start seeing more seedlings, more kids kind of, coming with that trait, with that spidery look or the unusual form.
Neat.
Okay, so I have to ask about like from a design standpoint. I would say this year is the exception, but up to this point, everybody wants Stella. So, right? So that, the long blooming yellow one that you see everywhere. But the problem is now I'm finding with clients, because they see it everywhere, they don't want it. So what would Stella be classified?
Well, Stella's an early bloomer.
Okay.
It's obviously small. It's kind of a rebloomer or a continuous bloomer.
Okay.
It would kind of, I guess, it would be in like a miniature form, I believe.
All right.
What actually form it would be, I'm just guessing here a little bit because it is kind of roundish, but it's also very trumpet-shaped or bell-shaped.
Okay.
I really don't know what classification that would be in, to be honest with you. Other than a miniature, maybe it could be a full form miniature.
Okay, but the reblooming aspect of it, I think
like
is what's made it.
Bloomer.
Yeah, what's made it popular. But
Very
then I know
popular,
there's people that, because it's that way and because it's kind of everywhere, including public parking lots and stuff, that for their home gardens, home gardeners are wanting something more unusual and probably things like what you're growing.
Well, that's it. I mean, everybody has yellows and oranges, and when people come here, I mean, I think they come with that thought in mind. Yeah. And then when they walk around the corner and they actually look out into that field, there's probably just about everything but yellows and oranges out there. There's just about every color under the rainbow.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and I think that's what attracts people, and that's when we talk about the modern daylily. We're getting away from the yellows and the oranges and those colors per se, and getting more into the the saturated reds and the dark colors and those off blues and the whites or off whites and every color in between.
Okay. Excellent. So when you have created a new one, some of your new or your registered ones, naming them, like, is there an official protocol? Can you name them, or is there the ODS or names them?
No, you pick a name yourself, and as long as no one else has registered a daylily sometime in history with that same name, then that name is registered or accepted by the American Hemerocallis Society, and that's what that plant is named.
Oh, very neat. So
I typically, so far, I've been putting TrueNorth in front of the name, and again, that helps me to
wise.
Because TrueNorth, and then I can use, even if a name's been used in the past, by using TrueNorth adds it becomes a new name.
Absolutely, and it helps people find them then too, I would think, right?
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
And I mean, and picking a name can be quite fun. I mean, you just try to pick different things and put them together, something unusual or unique, or you ask people to help you name it or something, and I haven't mentioned yet, but the other half of TrueNorth is Donna. She's kind of my better half.
Oh, okay.
She, I couldn't do this without her.
Excellent.
She's a big part of the gardening and the hosta side of it and the daylily side of it. And we kick names around, and it's kind of fun to come up with a name that because there's probably 70,000 registered daylilies.
For sure.
So to come up with a different name isn't easy.
Right.
And have you named? I'm just thinking of Donna now that you've mentioned her. But have you named any of your daylilies after someone special in your life, or a family member, or anything like that? Any person?
Well, I named one of my first introductions was named after Donna. It's TrueNorth My Heart.
Yes.
And it's a unique daylily. It's on the website.
Okay.
It's still one of my favorites today, and I use it still very heavily in hybridizing. And I named one after my sister, I think a year or so ago. It's just her name's Kathy, and I just named it Special K.
Oh, that's cute.
That one's named after her.
Yeah.
And there's just kind of whatever happens. If the flower seems to suit, maybe that
Yes.
person or something,
Right.
you use their name.
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about creating them is that you're responsible for them and responsible for their names. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I want to remind our listeners that you can find TrueNorth Daylilies at TrueNorthDaylilies.com. Also on Facebook, you have a Facebook page at
That's
TrueNorth
right.
Daylilies.
Yep.
And you said you do ship the registered ones, either mail across Canada, and you will mail to the U.S.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. I know there's a little bit of extra paperwork and stuff involved, but do you have a lot of customers from the U.S.?
Yeah, it's growing more and more every year.
Perfect.
And you're right, there is a little bit more paperwork, but it's not too bad. You have to get a phytosanitary to cross the border.
Right.
It's typically not that big a deal.
Okay.
And I'm finding every year your customer base is getting larger.
Grows and grows. Yeah.
It's kind of nice to see.
Yeah. And
sure.
would you have it now? When will you stop shipping?
Typically, you'll find that spring shipping is usually I've shipped some in the fall, but personally, I do prefer shipping in the spring.
Okay.
I think it's just a better time. We're not as busy, and the plants are just they're just starting out, so they just seem to ship better. Everything just seems to be better if you can ship them in the spring.
Excellent. So are you shipping right now or no?
Oh, I could, but I don't right now.
Okay.
I don't have anything in the books right now.
Good. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
could.
where we're hoping to bring you some customers. So now that it's definitely daylily season, and we have a lot of listeners here on Reality Radio 101 live tonight, and then we know the podcast will go live hopefully by the end of the week, and our listeners. So just to let people know that possibly, it is still mid-July, right? So
Yeah.
if you had to ship in July, beginning of August, you would, right? But
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I shipped last year to San Francisco, and it was later than this.
Okay.
It was probably into August.
Okay, perfect.
Late August.
Perfect. So so just good to let people know that they haven't missed it.
No.
That they can reach out to you. You've got a wonderful website, like Matt was saying, with lots of visuals, and so that's good. So we just like to let everybody know that they're not too late, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Excellent.
So, Tim, True North grows, you had mentioned hostas and some other perennials as well. So what
Because you weren't
perennials-
busy enough, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Well, what I like to joke with the hostas is Donna's retired.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of joke when I do presentations and stuff that, I was concerned that she'd be bored sitting at home doing nothing. So I thought, well, we'll bring in some hostas and we'll have a little something for her to do so she doesn't get bored. But that's, she looks after the hostas and kind of the marketing side of things. And,
Okay.
So she's a big part of what we do here.
Excellent.
And we hire a young fellow as well. Every year we try to hire somebody, if they stick around from year to year. And the guy we have this year is Lucas, and he's an outstanding worker. And, he's our weed guy, because our biggest jobs here is weeding.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in any gardens. I think we spend more time, energy, and probably money on weeds than we do anything else.
Yeah. Even home gardeners. Yes,
That's
we
right.
do.
And I mean, and he's a huge help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Way to go, Lucas.
Yeah, way to go. And I know I did meet him there. He helped all of us carry all our
That's right,
purchases to the bus and put them underneath the bus. And we were all like busy labeling our bags. So nobody, and it was successful. I think, Tim, we all got to the parking lot. We all walked away with the ones that we bought, that we, picked out. So that was good. Excellent. And you, as far as hostas go, you did have, especially for that price, $15 for one and $40 for three. You had some really wonderful varieties. So not just your typical daylily hostas. You had some great new varieties.
Well, we try to bring in, new stuff. It's always hard. You're kind of guessing a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's so many great, wonderful hostas as well. So you got to kind of have a good mix. You got to have minis right up to, giants.
Right.
Because you never know what somebody wants. So you got to bring in a little bit of everything. And of course, you got to have the newest. Try to get the newest, greatest thing because obviously, that's what people are looking for. So that's what we try to do.
Excellent. And I should tell everybody that you had a beautiful garden also to wander around and see the hostas. Again, the daylilies in the back were not in bloom, but we were able to wander around your property and look at some of the, hostas growing, and you had a beautiful waterfall. So it's, it's worth the drive. Like, it really is a fun experience.
Yeah, thank you.
For a gardener, you know what I mean? Like, if you're a gardener, I guess, if you're not a gardener, then I guess what are you doing, right? But, so it's not just a store, let's say, there is a bit of an experience there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I started gardening before anything else. And then in 2007, roughly, or maybe a little bit before, kind of got into the daylily side of it. So, what do you do when you have 50,000 daylilies? Like, what do you do with them?
Right.
So we kind of decided, let's just kind of open the doors, and if people want to come in and buy them out of the field, then great. And then it, that response was pretty good, and it still is. And we thought, well, then, with Donna being retired, and she was okay with, doing the hosta side of things and that, then it just seemed like a nice fit.
Okay.
So we were open typically, and we might change for next year, but typically we were open weekends in June and then every day in July.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I think next year we're probably going to be open more in June.
Okay.
Just because we more people are coming all the time.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to be here a little bit more in June.
Okay.
And I think this year, again, because we live here, our hours are kind of all over the place. People are sometimes pulling in at 7 o'clock at night. And if we're here, that's not a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think this year, because the season's so late, we're obviously going to have to extend our hours into August,
for sure. Now, do you also sell to local nurseries? Like, do you pot them up and,
No, I've never really been approached by anybody like landscapers or any type of a nursery situation. Not as yet, anyways.
Okay.
Typically, if they're looking for a mass, planting of one color, then that would be tough for me to supply that that sort of look.
Okay.
But if they wanted mass, plantings of uniqueness, like everything different, to create, a whole different, vista than one solid color of say like your Stellas, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Then absolutely, this would be the type of place you'd want to come to.
Okay, great. Well, if any of our listeners, hopefully somebody's in that predicament.
Yes.
Great.
Very cool, very cool. Mamie, a quick question.
Yep.
If you do see one that you really, really like, is it that can you only get the one, or are there like one or two or three of things?
So typically what happens in the field, if we're talking just the seedlings in the field, again, it depends on the size of the plant. Like sometimes those plants, it could be 3 fans, could be 5 fans, could be 8 fans.
Okay.
It kind of depends on the size that you selected. I mean, we have some clumps out there that are pretty big. And, sometimes you couldn't even carry it to the truck. They're so big. So we might split them in half or even quarter them. But you'll still get like 5, 6, 8 fans. Easy.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
Now, the registered ones are a little different. Typically, I like to give, a pretty good clump when I dig or when I ship a registered one.
Okay.
But typically a registered one, even when I buy them off other hybridizers, you might get 1 to 2 fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the norm, but I kind of like to send, if I can, 3, 4, 5 fans.
Okay.
That's very nice.
Wow, that's great.
Excellent. Yeah.
And are they easy to divide? Are they a perennial that you, after a couple of years, if your clump has gotten mature?
Yeah, they're not too bad to divide. I
Okay.
mean, you can dig the whole thing up, and you can kind of hose them down with your garden hose to get a good look at the roots. And then you can start working the roots back and forth. And some daylilies will just almost fall apart.
Okay.
But other ones can be really tough, and you got to kind of get in there with a knife.
Okay.
And you can kind of look to see kind of where you want to cut. And, unfortunately, you might, kind of waste one fan. But typically, you could take a clump and divide it right down to a single fan if you're careful.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the time has flown, Tim. We've learned a lot about daylilies tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Haven't
you.
we, Matt?
We have, yeah. And if you guys haven't gone to his website yet, or if you're in the area, highly recommend making the trip and taking a look online. It's fantastic.
That's right. So once again, everyone, it's TrueNorth Daylilies.com, and on Facebook it's at TrueNorth Daylilies, and your contact information and everything else is there. Is there anything else you want to share or make sure everybody knows before we go?
No, I think we've kind of covered a lot of things. Obviously, with daylilies, I mean we kind of just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of daylilies and a whole lot of there's people that have probably forgotten more than I've learned. There's just so much to talk about with daylilies, but I think we did a pretty good go of it tonight, and I appreciate you having me on.
Oh.
And if somebody wants to email me personally or call or whatever, we're here. So
Perfect.
reach out to us.
And you mentioned kind of in your off season, you also do talks and you speak at horticultural societies and things like that.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be. Usually, I do 4, 5, 6 talks a year.
Excellent.
Kind of around the country. I've been as far as Toronto. Actually, a lady was here just the other day who's probably they're going to maybe get me up to Kingston. So I kind of bounce all around. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. Say hi to Donna for us.
I will.
You're gonna have to add her to your bio.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. So that was great.
That's awesome.
I
Fantastic.
learned a lot.
Yes, there's more to daylilies than stelladoros. That's for sure.
That is for sure. And I think it's fascinating to see that you can create a new one, and that you never know what you're going to get.
Yep. Just like Christmas morning.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Man, he's got some beautiful ones.
Yeah. So that is great. So thank you everybody for listening.
Yes. Thank you, Ron, Gail, Erica, Kyle, and Larry for writing in. As always, we appreciate your questions. Thanks for Gary for producing the show as always as well.
That's right. Thank you, Gary. And we always want to know what you want to. We're always keen to find out new topics and research new things.
Yeah.
So if you do have something in mind that we haven't done a show on, or you have an interest, please reach out to us. I'm again at Joanne at down2earth with the number 2.ca. And Matthew
is at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca.
That's right. So we're always looking for new topics to cover to help you with your gardens.
You got it.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can drop us a line, and don't forget to check in and like and subscribe to the podcast. And tune in next Monday evening, as always, here down the garden path on Reality Radio 101.
That's right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.